Coming up today, South Korea says North Korea was responsible for last week's landmine explosion that seriously injured 2 South Korean soldiers. Will he or won't he? A day after reports emerged that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will not apologize for Japan's wartime atrocities in his upcoming war anniversary statement, Japan's state broadcaster says he will say sorry. Plus, with the exception of North America, Samsung Electronics ranks #1 in smartphone markets around the world thanks to strong sales of low to mid-end devices. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 10th of August. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea was responsible for a landmine explosion at the heavily fortified demilitarized zone last week that seriously injured 2 South Korean soldiers. For the details, we have Kim Hyun-bin standing by at the defense ministry in Seoul. Hyun-bin.
Mark, the defense ministry said an hour and a half ago that North Korea was behind the mine blast, and the ministry says that it recovered some debris from the mines after a thorough survey of the site, and they've concluded that the debris was from a PMD series mine. Now, this is identical to the kinds of landmines typically used by Pyongyang. Now, the Joint Chiefs of Staff condemned North Korea for its actions, calling it a violation of the armistice agreement, and he emphasized that South Korea will make the North pay for its actions. Let's hear what they have to say.
These acts by Pyongyang violate the armistice agreement and the non-aggression pact. We urge North Korea to apologize for its provocations and punish those involved. As we have previously warned, we will make Pyongyang pay dearly for its provocations.
The United Nations Command has also condemned North Korea for the incident and proposed a generals meeting with North Korea. Now, the explosions took place on the southern side of the DMZ near the city of Paju, Gyeonggi-do Province, last Tuesday morning, as the 2 sergeants were carrying out a regular scouting mission there. The explosions nearly severed the soldiers' legs, and they were rushed to a military hospital for treatment. The heavily forested military buffer between the 2 Koreas is loaded with landmines, and the military secures safe routes in the DMZ to conduct search operations there. That's all I have for now. I have more updates in the later newscast. I'm Kim Hyun-bin reporting.
Well, that was our Kim Hyun-bin there reporting from the Defense Ministry on the landmine explosions up there at the border. Now, in other news, President Park Geunhye has expressed deep regret that North Korea unilaterally decided to create its own time zone without discussing the matter with South Korea. At a meeting of her senior secretaries earlier today, President Park says she's concerned the time change could further widen the gap between the 2 Koreas, especially while Seoul tries to narrow the differences ahead of the 70th anniversary of the division of the peninsula. She then criticized the North for going back on efforts to reunite the 2 Koreas by not responding to the South's proposals for dialogue. Meanwhile, President Park also expressed sadness over the death of another Korean victim of Japan's wartime sex slavery program and urged Tokyo to clearly uphold its previous apologies marking the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule this week. The presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae says it's carefully considering whether President Park should attend China's September 3rd commemorative event for the 70th anniversary of the Allied victory over Japan in World War II. President Park's spokesperson also denied a Japanese media report that the US requested the Korean leader not to attend the ceremonies, calling it groundless. The White House has also denied the report. On Sunday, Japan's Kyodo news agency said Washington made the request, raising concerns President Park, by attending, may send a message that China has caused a rift in the South Korea-US alliance. Cheong Wa Dae is expected to make the decision after its own review and taking into account what Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says in his anniversary statement on Friday. And a flicker of hope, perhaps, for Korea-Japan relations. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe could include key words used by his predecessors on Tokyo's wartime past in his upcoming World War II statement, which, as we just heard, will be released on Friday. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe could use terms like apology and aggression in his statement to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. Citing an unnamed senior government official, NHK reported Monday that Abe may repeat key words used in the Murayama statement released in 1995. That year, former Japanese Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama had expressed feelings of deep remorse and offered a heartfelt apology to mark the 50th anniversary of Japan's surrender. Murayama also acknowledged that Tokyo had inflicted tremendous damage and suffering in Asia through its colonial rule and aggression. Monday's NHK report is a bit more optimistic than previous reports by Japanese media outlets. The Asahi Shimbun reported last week that while Abe reiterated that he would inherit as a whole the statements by his predecessors, the draft of his version did not include the word apology to Asian countries for Japan's role in the war, nor the phrases colonial rule and aggression. Whatever is in the Abe statement will have a huge influence on Korea-Japan relations. Seoul and Beijing, the major victims of Japan's wartime aggression, are closely watching the statements, which will be released Friday. But some say the content will largely depend on the primary audience that Abe has in mind. If his statement is targeted toward Japan's Asian neighbors and the victims of its wartime aggression, the Japanese leader will uphold the Murayama statement. But if he is planning to direct the address to his domestic audience, he may choose to focus on Japan's post-war recovery rather than apologizing for the country's wartime past. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, up until today's NHK report, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe seemed to be showing extreme reluctance to issue an apology for Japan's wartime atrocities. And one of his predecessors has criticized that feeling, saying it would erode neighboring countries' trust in Japan. Now, former Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama made the statement in an interview with Tokyo-based Kyodo news agency on Sunday, reiterating that Japan should make an apology as a matter of course, since it's a historical fact the country committed acts of aggression during World War II. He said Japan needs to regain trust from other Asian countries, adding that his statement in 1995 played an important role in solving historical issues and improving relations with China and Korea. Murayama pointed out that Japan feels it has been victimized since the war, but does not have a feeling of responsibility for its grave wrongdoings. A U.S. conservative weekly magazine has criticized the Japanese government for its continued distortion of history and ambivalent behavior on key issues such as Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island and wartime sexual slavery and forced labor. In an article posted on the internet prior to being published next week, the Weekly Standard says Japan's claims to Dokdo Island are plainly illegitimate. It also found fault with its prime minister's widely condemned annual visits to the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo, which honors 14 Class A war criminals. It said the visits raised doubts on how sincere Japan is about its professed remorse over its wartime atrocities. It also commented on the issue of young women and girls from occupied territories who were forced into sex slavery by the Japanese military, which is still a very acutely painful memory for many Koreans. The debate over how to split the cost for the U.S. forces Korea will continue to be a contentious issue, especially because the current cost-sharing agreement between South Korea and the U.S. expires in 2018. Now, that's what Leon White, a senior editor of the Fletcher Security Review, wrote in an op-ed in The Diplomat on Sunday. He said the debate will be fueled in part by changes to defense spending in both countries. The U.S. defense budget will fall by hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years, while South Korea's defense spending for this year has increased by more than 5%, and that's the highest rate of growth since 2011. White said some U.S. lawmakers question why a rich country like South Korea does not contribute more to the bilateral alliance, while Korean politicians say Seoul is already paying more than its fair share. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy party will discuss its proposal for reforms to Korea's electoral system at a general meeting of its lawmakers today. Last week, the NPAD proposed to the ruling Saenuri party that they work out a deal on launching a new electoral system in exchange for an open primary to select candidates for next parliamentary election. Now, under the NPAD's proposed system, the country would be divided into multiple electoral zones and parliamentary seats would be allocated according to the percentage of votes obtained by each party in each area. Both rival parties have recently shown interest in an open primary system, though they have yet to work out the details. Multiple investigations are now underway into one of Korea's biggest conglomerates, Lotte Group. The group's cloudy corporate structure and allegations of possible tax evasion were all brought to light, really, by the recent feud within the founder's family. Shinzo reports.
A thorough investigation into retail giant Lotte Group is picking up ahead of steam. Korea's Fair Trade Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service have separately requested Lotte Group provide them with related information. They are looking into Lotte's complicated governing structure and possible tax evasion in light of the nasty family feud within the founder's family. On top of that, the National Tax Service has been leading an investigation into Taehong Communications, the group's affiliated advertisement firm. But Lotte Group has claimed that probe is a separate issue as it began last month before the family feud kicked off. The NTS is believed to be studying related data on the group's advertisement arm as Lotte Hotel, the de facto holding company of the group's Korean business units, owns a controlling stake of 12.8% in the firm. The tax agency's probe has led to speculation the NTS may be looking into other parts of Korea's 8th largest conglomerate, not just a communications firm. Lotte Group's recent revelation of its opaque governance structure could even lead to a creation of a new law. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy and a dozen other minor party members have proposed a bill called the Lotte Law. It would be aimed at stopping conglomerates from seeking loopholes in cross-shareholdings through controlling overseas affiliates. Shin Arirang News.
Now, Samsung Electronics topped almost every smartphone market in the world in the second quarter of this year. The only region where the Korean company missed the crown was North America, according to data compiled by industry tracker Strategy Analytics. Samsung was the top seller of smartphones in Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa in the April to June period. Industry watchers attribute Samsung's strong global presence to solid sales of low to mid-end devices and the Galaxy S6, which together totaled nearly 72 million units. However, in the North American market, Samsung stood in the number 2 spot behind Apple in an effort to retake the smartphone crown for the first time in over a year in North America. Samsung will unveil its upcoming devices in New York on this Thursday. Now, Apple is set to release its next iPhone series in September. Korea's so-called Big Three shipbuilders are headed for a record loss again this year, due largely to delays in the construction of offshore facilities and tumbling new orders. According to industry sources, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering and Samsung Heavy Industries are to post a combined loss of up to $5.1 billion for the year. The three have already racked up a combined loss of $4 billion for the first half alone. For the world's top shipbuilder, Hyundai Heavy Industries, it will mark the first time it has posted losses for 2 consecutive years. A company official said the losses are inevitable and minimizing the impact is the key concern. A survey has shown that almost 9 out of 10 South Korean companies are willing to do business in North Korea after the divided peninsula is unified. But most of them say icy inter-Korean ties probably means unification is still a long way off. Son Jung-in has more.
The Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry has published its survey result conducted on 500 companies in South Korea on inter-Korean business after unification. The survey showed that 87% of the respondents would be interested in doing business in North Korea. Among them, 31% said they would actively promote the move, while 56% said they would do so if certain conditions are met. Only 13% said they would not be interested even after unification. Of the companies interested, they regarded the border cities of Kaesong and Haeju as the most desired places to do business. They were followed by the capital area of Pyongyang and Nampo and cities bordering China such as Siniju and Hwanggeunpyeong Island. As for the type of business, the respondents said they were most interested in developing natural resources and building infrastructure such as bridges and roads, as well as establishing manufacturing bases. While the majority shared the view that unification is necessary, 70% said inter-Korean ties are stalled. The KCCI said inter-Korean economic cooperation would help reduce the cost of unification. It added that the two Koreas should engage in active dialogue and negotiation to seek more versatile and specific cross-border exchanges. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great day, and thank you, as always, for watching. We do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.